Hello and welcome to week 2 of No Sleep Till Coryslia. This is a short Hello and welcome to week 2 of No Sleep Till Coryslia, a short story by Gareth Howells from his collection 10 Tales of Transformation. And yes, in July, I did say the majority of the content will be about celebrating Canadians. I am a Canadian. I have my Canada is like no otter shirt. And yes, Gareth is British, but we did start reading his story last week, and I want to continue on with that. Also, we'll have little teakers up at the top there. I don't know if she'll stay the whole time that I'm reading, but she enjoys laying up there, so we'll see what mischief she gets up to. Last week, we met the band, the different members, and the planets they came from. We learned about their music and their big hit, How's Your Hair? Which was just something silly they had done, recorded. The silly song is what made them famous, which basically was a joke they had recorded, and it's just a repetition of the one line. So the band is understandably a little disappointed, as they have a number of other songs they've worked on and really wanted people to enjoy, and yet it's this silly song that has pushed them up and over into being popular and getting a 36-day gig in Coryslia, something that they have been very excited about, but they're also worried, how are they going to do gigs 36 days in a row? We know from earlier that they had done 13 days in a row, and that pretty much wiped them out. They're about to get on the hyper ship, which is very quick, and get them to Coryslia to begin their 36-day tour. This week, we start off with the band trying to figure out how are they going to get through these 36 days. Are we going to say something? Deed asked the rest of the band. There's no point, is there? Black stated, aware of the dates being booked and the commitment that follows. He should have asked us first. I'm still struggling to walk. Trent usually felt the effects of a run of gigs on his feet before it hit the rest of his body. And we have to do another 36 days, Riff added. I can't think straight. I'm missing half of what you guys are saying to me. DK was feeling the fatigue. I could sleep right now for another few weeks. There was a moment of silence among the group, with the echoing sound of the huge spaceport returning to their subconscious. They remained this way until a nervous, quiet voice came from Trent, leaning towards the rest of the band as he spoke. There is one thing we can do, he whispered. What's that? Riff whispered back. We're going to Coryslia, right? Trent said. Yes, so? Plax answered bluntly. Well, Coryslia is the home of the Dengen plant. He smiled as he whispered it, as if he had come up with a plan to rule the world without any opposition. Plax suddenly became very animated. You're out of your mind, Trent. The tone of his voice spoke volumes about the touchy subject being discussed. Oh, come on, Plax, you must have been curious. I have never been curious, and I've known a few people who have taken it. I never saw them again. Really? It's supposed to make you able to stay awake for 70-odd days. They were still whispering, but their voices were becoming more emotive, and their occasional looks behind them made the whole discussion look very suspicious. To what cost, Trent? Plax was very clearly nervous of this suggestion. I'm in, Riff simply stated. Plax looked at him, stunned. Yeah, I'm in. Deet added, now bringing an even more exaggerated look of bewilderment on Plax's face. Sorry, mate, but I agree with the others. We need this thing to get us through those dates Jenkins got us. This was DK. His fellow Movine's words were the last straw. Plax was astonished that his band was thinking of searching for a highly illegal drug to get them through a series of gigs that might not be the drain on their energy that they think it will be. There was a moment of silence between them again. Plax threw up his arms in resignation and almost whispered, Fine, let's do it. Let's find this Dengen plant and let's get on that hypership to Coryslia. His tone ended on an enthusiastic voice of excitement, as Plax knew that no one wants negative energy bringing the party down, and ultimately he was very firmly outvoted. Trent carried on with the same dynamic in the conversation, heads down, huddled like conspirators, voices just above a whisper. I know a trader who's managed to avoid the security on Coryslia and has built a nice little empire on Dengen plants. She's a bit odd and might kill one of us, just in case we're thinking of doing something, but she's the best source I know, and we won't get done for it. Hold on. I'm not sure about someone who might just kill us for the sake of it, Plax said, not unreasonably. Yeah, but if she doesn't kill us, we could still do the gig, Deke added, unhelpfully. Well, yeah, Plax looked down at him with a confused stare of scorn. I think you missed my point. How the hell did you find out about this traitor? Riff asked, still whispering. Before I was a singer, I was used as a courier by black market traders like Ursulus. She loved the fact that a three-headed beast like me can hide anything in two of their heads, while the middle one does all the talking, like I am now. You're hiding something? DK was trying to follow. No, I'm not hiding something, but I'm the only head talking. Yeah, we don't say a lot, to be fair. We got used to everyone looking at the middle head. He can do all the talking, the left head explained. Aye, what he said, the right one added, vainly attempting to show interest. The three heads had grown into a particular dynamic that resulted from the way Trent was addressed. It was very rare that one of the side heads was spoken to, and usually only for a compliment about a vocal harmony or counterpoint part that had been sung at a gig. Even on record, the public thought that Trent's middle head sang all the parts. It was a huge bone of contention. Occasionally, one of the heads would react defensively in a conversation when it felt like it was being ignored. When both the side heads felt neglected, then Trent's middle head had a very bad day. A day of bickering, sarcasm, and scornful side glances was very tiring on anyone with three heads. So this is someone you've had business with in the past? Deet asked for clarification. Both side heads immediately acknowledged Deet's attention being firmly back on the middle head and sighed loudly. The sigh went unnoticed. Yes, Ursulus is mad, power-hungry, and unpredictable, but she has a lot of Dengen. Trent's middle head continued. It's the biggest part of her trade. She's managed to evade the security there for years. She sounds like a genius, Riff said, hopeful. Yeah, a mad, dangerous, psychotic genius, Plax added. I'd love to be mad and psychotic, Riff said with a romantic tone, yearning for excitement. Just concentrate on the guitar, mate. We'll worry about being psychotic later. Trent supported Riff's desire, even if the rest of the band looked at each other with concern about the comment. With a unified sense of purpose, the band all got up, grabbed their bags, and walked toward the terminal entrance. The hypership was due in less than 20 minutes, and they still had the retina checks and the baggage inspection to deal with. Trent always had fun with the retina checks. As Kelpians had three heads, the customs inspectors rolled their eyes every time they saw a Kelpian argue about which head was going to do the check and Trent's joking around was a tired routine for them. On this occasion, it was a good way of diffusing the tension about the side heads being ignored. Jenkin was waiting for them at the customs area with the flight tickets and travel passes. Once they had all the paperwork confirmed and checked, and Trent had finished his performance with the retina scan, the six of them boarded the hypership and settled in for the flight to Coryslia. When they reached the main hypership port on Coryslia, the light was dimming and nighttime was fast approaching. Jenkin gave the band directions for the hotel they were going to stay at and told them he'd meet them the following day. The 36-day run would start in 2 days, so there was very little time to plan ahead. The equipment they used for their gigs was being shipped separately, but straight to the first venue of the tour. The band wouldn't see that until they reached the first venue, the Champion, a large venue with rows at the back of padded seating with springs attached to enable the fans at the back to bounce along to the music all night. It was a relatively new design innovation to concert seating that was starting to catch on throughout Coryslia. The Brown Yelp gang loved it and used it to full effect during their song, Bounce Better Than Your Best Bouncing Brother. They were looking forward to starting their tour at the Champion, and the three of them were happy to go straight to the hotel and rest. Trent had to act fast for his mission on meeting up with Ursulus and obtaining some of her Dengen plant. He had a short window and knew that she'd be a difficult merchant to deal with even in the best circumstances. In such a rush, someone could get hurt. This is principally why he brought Lazy Riff with him, a man who was totally on board with him about the mission for buying the drug, and a man who could hold his own in a fight if it got ugly. In fact, Riff would often start the fight himself. Trent always thought that there was something irresistible and sexy about a woman with one eye staring from the middle of her face. Ursulus had effortlessly seduced him with that feature she was born with, and the translucent color on her skin every time they met up. She was aware of her effect on him and loved it. Her body was always changing its color, and Trent found it exciting and frankly distracting. This is why he didn't feel quite as threatened by her as some of her associates did. As people around her witnessed her bizarre and unpredictable temper, and body started falling to the floor, Trent was powerless and hypnotized by the psychedelic colors of her skin and the wide eye that bored through anyone in her view. He had a soft spot for her and flirted with her, despite almost being killed on 3 different previous encounters with her. Some would say he was a glutton for danger. Some would say it was lust. His band would say he needed to concentrate on what he was supposed to be doing and not risk getting banged up before the gig. He knew her main office of trade was in the basement of the Speckled Interruption, a rough public house with a reputation for illegal substances, black market trade, needless aggression, prostitution, and fantastic donuts. Many argued that the donuts were the main draw, but it had to be acknowledged that the lack of Coryslia's security forces in the area was a major part of the attraction. Trent and Riff traveled there in no time and were eager to meet her. Trent gestured Riff into the Speckled Interruption and looked left and right as he walked in himself, aware that he was treading a thin line here, stepping into a rogue's gallery of amorality. As they stepped into the bar, they were greeted by a smartly dressed, thick-set, humanoid hulk of a man reaching at least 8 feet tall, with a face dominated by a flat nose that had clearly seen some better days. He was almost a caricature of muscle and authority, forming a looming shadow over them as they stared up at him. He stared disapprovingly at the 2 new patrons of the bar, looking down from his great height, and snarled. "Who are you?" he blurted out. All 3 of Trent's heads fumbled at their answer. The last time he'd been here, he was welcomed with open arms by Ursula's men. He didn't recognize this man and hadn't seen anyone that tall or foreboding in his life. "We're here to see Ursulus." Riff was gleefully unaware of the intentions of the doorman and was consequentially light and optimistic in his tone of voice. "No." The doorman turned to Riff and with lightning speed moved his head within inches of Riff's long hair. "That was not my question." As Riff breathed in the muscle man's toxic breath, Trent composed himself and looked around. He saw a totally different vision of the speckled interruption than the last time he had been there. The decor was different. The weapons along the walls had been replaced by maps of the Coryslia system, and there was a sense that an extra sheen had been put around the drab and dusty bar. It was now populated by a much more sophisticated, high-class clientele, rather than the violent, ugly, and unpredictable wrestler types that frequented the bar in the old days. In previous visits, the walls would be splattered with the blood of the regulars. Now it was full of artwork painted by the locals and the occasional sign about etiquette in the bar. This all flashed through Trent's 3 sets of eyes as he scanned the place, while thinking of how to address the overly enthusiastic doorman they met as they walked in. Almost instantly, he felt that he had a grip on the new style of bar he had walked in. He composed himself in a more sophisticated manner and tried again. "We have a meeting booked with Ursulus." Trent was certain that this would be more productive. "What time?" the oversized chunk of man barked. Trent quickly looked at his time tracker. 10. "Okay, wait there." The doorman pointed to 2 seats that were conveniently beside the main entrance. Clearly there was a system at work here. There was a pause of about 3 minutes, followed by the sound coming through the room's loudspeaker system. It was Ursulus. "Trent, you weasel, come to the back room in the basement and tell me what you're doing in this neck of the woods." Trent thought hearing her voice around the room was a little disconcerting, and certainly a change from the mysterious secrecy of before, but somehow it didn't sit right with how he remembered her. Despite this, he nudged Lazy Riff's arm, and they both stood up to find the basement, located from a flight of stairs at the back of the room. As they walked through to the back, Riff grabbed food off the plates of the people sat between the entrance and where he was going. Evidently, he was far too comfortable in this place. At the entrance to the basement, another large doorman was blocking the way in. He stood firm and very stern at the door, waiting for someone to look at him in a funny way, to release some of that pent-up anger he had built up. Trent and Riff's trepidation was immediately disarmed with the doorman suddenly becoming animated when he saw the 2 of them approaching. "How's your hair? How's your hair? How's your hair? How's your hair?" He started chanting in a unique key that changed every syllable. Riff smiled as he loved fandom. Trent's 3 heads all rolled their eyes as this was the last place he wanted to be recognized. "I love your songs," the doorman exclaimed loudly, smiling as he greeted them. "Ah, so many classics. There's the one about the shoe. Love that one." "I can shoe you in next week," Riff said, clarifying the song title. "Yeah, and the one about the guy." "The guy?" Riff wanted to help him identify the song. "Can we go in?" Trent was impatient, totally indifferent to the doorman's love of his songs. "What's the one about the guy?" the doorman said. "What guy?" Trent asked. "I know what he means, the one about the guy." Riff was somehow managing to make the doorman feel that he was on to something, while giving no help at all in figuring it out. "What?" Trent was losing his patience with Riff now. "The guy. The guy with the letter." Riff was fumbling for clues. "Yeah, that's it. The letter," the doorman said, becoming more animated when Riff added the letter. "I've never written a song about a guy and a letter." Trent said, now resigned to the delay that he wasn't expecting. Da 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 da. The doorman made a sorry attempt at singing it. That wasn't it. Whatever it was, Trent was suppressing a laugh. Riff started singing a guitar melody that he thought came from the song about the guy in a letter. Trent screwed his face up in confused disgust as the doorman carried on singing a rough estimate of a tune similar to the one of the Brown Yelp Gang songs, while Riff sang the guitar melody over the top. It was entertaining, but for all the wrong reasons. I know what you're doing now. They both stopped and listened to Trent with anticipation. It isn't a song about a letter. What is it? The doorman crouched in excitement. Back to Rosie. The doorman looked puzzled by the song title. Let her send me back to Rosie, Trent sang in three-part harmony. Riff laughed and pointed to Trent as he realized what the song was, and then he wrote that one himself. It's not about a letter? The doorman asked innocently. No. Can we please go in? Trent cut to the chase. Not yet. The doorman rifled through his pockets, took out a small cylinder. He showed it to Riff and Trent. Could you sign this for me? Trent and Riff looked at the cylinder. The doorman flipped a switch on it, and it transformed into a see-through metal record with the words Brown Yelp Gang First EP written across the middle in a semicircle. Riff loved that format and couldn't get enough of seeing the EP morphing into the reprint of the record. The metal records were rare commodities, but acted the same as the digital disc cards, only the design was more retro and chic. Flattery had little effect on Trent. I'll leave you to it, Trent said to Riff as he slipped past him and the doorman to get into the office in the basement. Here he'd have a long-awaited reunion with Coryslia. As he walked in, several weapons pointed to him from different angles in the room. Trent was feeling a little unwelcomed. From the other side of the room came the calm, collected voice of the woman in charge of the entire building and many other buildings besides. Well, look at that, she said, blinking her one eye seductively. If it isn't the grand thief and genius of illegal haulage, Trent, my favorite Kelpian. She was genuinely pleased to see him and moved forward to give him a traditional belch greeting. The weapons were lowered and Trent reciprocated the greeting with his own belch. They hugged and Ursula gripped his left hand with the usual force, speaking as if her life depended on it. I love your band, she said humbly. Every song is one of my favorites. Your voice, the drums of the little guy from Hurl, the fantastic Movine sounds, and that guitar guy with the beard. What a band! Trent was pleased to be greeted by her with such enthusiasm, but was glad that Lazy Riff wasn't there to hear her refer to him as that guitar guy with the beard. Their previous relationship, outside the law, was a fraught mix of threat and flirting, so Ursula's, being so enthusiastic about the career he chose after his time with her, was a welcome relief. It also created a break in the tension that was much needed after the altercation with the guy at the main door. Fame might be a drag when you're trying to lay low, but it's a great diffuser if they know your songs. Ursulus was in control, but also aware that Trent had created a new life for himself after their last meeting. She immediately walked to the drinks cabinet. What am I making you? She said, still evidently enjoying the presence of one of the Brown Yelp gang, even if she and Trent go way back before the start of the band. I'll have a large whatever you have, please. That request came from the guitar guy, Lazy Riff. He was standing at the door, having finished singing his own songs with the doorman. The doorman was still singing, his horrific tuning being muffled through the now closed door. Ursulus laughed and poured him a long glass of Rannoch juice. She turned to Trent. What would you three like? she asked the heads again, ignoring the first time she didn't get a reply. Trent, with three separate answers, was going to reply, and then noticed a dead humanoid body by her feet. He was obviously dead by the growing pool of blood trickling out of the back of his head. "Who's that?" Trent asked, pointing to the floor. "Horny smuggler, owed me money." "How are you going to get his money now?" Riff asked from the back of the room. She turned to him and addressed both of them with their next throwaway statement. "I'll be collecting from his family. They won't argue." She smiled, stepping over the body and pouring a glass of Rannoch juice for Trent, Riff, and herself. "Rannoch juice all around then?" Trent observed nervously. "Indeed. Now, what are you here for?" Ursulus cut to the core of the moment. "Okay, Ursulus, I'm not going to mess around." "I should think not." "Yeah, well, we need something very special." "I guess you want some Dengen plant?" she said apathetically. "Well, yeah. How'd you know?" "You're musicians." Trent and Lazy Riff both looked at each other, as if there was an unspoken moment of agreement with her. They knew what they were about to do had been done by other, lesser-known bands. "We've got a big tour coming up and need the energy," Riff explained. 36 nights at once without a break," Trent added, wide-eyed, as if it was a feat worth awarding medals for. "We're clearly out of our tiny minds." Ursulus scoffed, smiling at the innocence of using Dengen plant for such a problem. "You do know what the plant does?" she asked, looking at them with a serious stare that gave them chills. Riff and Trent looked at each other, then looked back at the woman in control of the room. "Well, yeah," Trent stammered. "We've heard it makes you go for weeks. All the energy you need for anything," Riff said more confidently. "Think you boys need to be careful. You're messing with the wrong kind of chemical assistance." "So, does it make you go for weeks?" Trent asked, using the same language as Riff, deliberately. "Well, yeah, it does. It also twists your brain so that you feel like your head's been turned inside out, and your sense of reality is skewed beyond recognition in the first few minutes of the drug taking effect. The effect is totally unpredictable on any and every person that takes it. It's kind of beautiful like that. You may not be able to cope with it." Ursulus watered the plants around the room as she spoke. She grabbed a leaf of Dengen plant as she walked along the right wall and held it up to her visitors. "This is powerful stuff." And that is where we will finish for this week. We have our stereotypical rock and roll band considering using drugs to get through their 36-day concert. We have Trent, who has reconnected with someone he used to work for. And next week, we will be finishing No Sleep Till Coryslia, where we find out whether the band decides to go ahead and take the drug, find out how their concert does, and will Ursulus actually kill one of them, or will all of the band continue on? If you're enjoying the story, No Sleep Till Coryslia, one of the short stories from 10 Tales of Transformation by Gareth Howells, you can find his work on Amazon. And if you want to learn even more about the Brown Yelp Gang and their adventures after this short story, Gareth has written a novel about the band and where things go after this short story. There's amazing artwork on the front of it, and you can also find this on Amazon as well. Once we finish the short story, we'll be going on to reading a little bit of the Brown Yelp Gang. Equally funny, many interesting moments and just an enjoyable and pleasant read, so I highly recommend. To learn more about the author, Gareth Howells, be sure to go to his YouTube channel, Book Songs and Other Magic. And until next time, be safe, be well, and big hugs.